Hello, I'm Peter Bradley. I'm the director of the honors program here at Ferris State University, and I'm also a member of the Professional Development Committee of the NCHC. I'm a philosopher by training, but once I had another life as a Unix system administrator in the dot-com boom of the late 90s. So I've been around the internet and its technologies for a long time. I've run a couple of workshops at the NCHC on how to use social media to communicate real information. And the Professional Development Committee asked me, along with my colleagues Melissa and John, to put together a toolkit about social media and how to improve our communication strategies in honors. Our goal here is to convince you that social media should be an important part of your communication strategy and shouldn't just be left to a work study or some other entertainment or marketing individual. By the way, if you can read faster than I can talk, there's a text version of this script in the toolkit below. Because of my background in the internet of the mid-90s, I've used social media quite differently than many other users. Most people giving advice on how to use social media today are marketers or advertisers, admissions folks for higher education. They're interested in brand engagement, loyalty, and ultimately in purchasing decisions. While those are important uses of social media for recruitment, they are not my main interest in an academic environment. As an honors director, I'm interested in providing opportunities for my students to enrich their collegiate experience so they can be prepared to fulfill their aspirations. I'm not trying to sell them anything other than how to make the most of the opportunities afforded to them. So when I look at social media, I see just another method for communicating with my students. It's an interesting method with a couple of features that make it very useful, but it's just another communications method. Everything that we communicate with our students currently, whether it be through memos, emails, catalogs, campus-wide announcements, etc., can and should be communicated through social media. Not in replacement of those methods, but in supplement to those methods. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. We'll start with the basics. So what is it and where does it come from? Google's definition of social media is websites and applications that enable users to create and share content or participate in social networking. Okay, that's a good start, but what is social networking? Again, Google defines it as the use of dedicated websites and applications to interact with other users or to find people with similar interests to oneself. Great. I remember the good old days of Usenet, internet news. I distinctly recall interacting with others and finding others with similar interests to myself. I also remember interacting with others on IRC and email for that matter. So neither of these definitions offer a distinction about what makes social media different from all the other internet media that preceded it. Dana Boyd and Nicole Ellison offer a much more precise definition in their 2007 paper, Social Network Sites, Definition, History, and Scholarship. According to Boyd and Ellison, we define social network sites as web-based services that allow individuals to 1. Construct a public or semi-public profile within a bounded system, 2. Articulate a list of users with whom they share a connection, and 3. View and traverse their list of connections and those made by others within the system. There is something missing here, but to explain that, I need to contextualize social media a little. Social media today evolved from 2 strands of web functionality that were available in the late 1990s and early 2000s. The earliest successful social media sites were Friendster and MySpace, but we need to go a little bit further back than that to fully explain. Blogs, which is a portmanteau of web and log with the first WE dropped, is a temporal ordering of information. Today we think about blog posts as longer form narrative structure, with each post about a page in length. Blog posts are, basically, short articles. These were organized by time created, with the most recent at the top. With blogs, user-generated content exploded on the web. It was now easy for anyone to create a site, publish their writing in ways that others can find it and comment on it. But in these early days of blogs, there was another group of users, those who used blogs for very short posts, sometimes with photos or videos, and frequently linking to existing content. This practice spawned social bookmarking. These were sites such as StumbleUpon, Delicious, and Digo, places where users could say roughly, hey, I think this is interesting and you should check it out. These sites had 2 features. 1, a public user profile, and 2, a sharing of bookmarks. These 2 things contributed to the development of social media. Reddit got its start as social bookmarking, but morphed into a kind of discussion forum. So I kind of include it here, but not really. If you wanted to collect and save all your activity, one had to have a central profile where that could happen. In about 1997, Andrew Weinrich founded a site called 6degrees.com in reference to the famous Stanley Milgram's Small World experience of 1967. It allowed users to create a profile and list friends. In about 2008, it introduced the ability to view your friends' lists of friends, and hence the network in social networking was born. Sites all over the internet tried to jump on this new functionality. Friendster, MySpace, and LiveJournal all synthesized blogging and friending. We had a new advance in technology, however, with Facebook, which started at Harvard in about 2004, and this was the status update. Statuses in the original Facebook were constrained to a third-person narrative. They all started with Peter is, and then you were supposed to say, hanging out in the dorms or working on my homework. That didn't last very long. People started using them, despite the grammatical form, to make announcements, to put things out there that they liked and they wanted to link to. So in the early noughts, about 2004, 2006, we had a bunch of different sites on the internet, all of which required you to have friend lists and friends of friends lists, and each was constrained to its own little domain. To solve this problem, somebody came up with the idea of live streaming. Live streams were ways to integrate all of the different sites into one location. The best live stream at the time was Twitter, and that's where that really got started. So users that were using live streams were including their activity from all of these different sites, including the social bookmarking places and the status updates from Facebook. They were aggregated into a single page where you could see what that person had been doing in their day. The best of these, the one with the most open API that could hook to the most of other sites, was Twitter. Twitter allowed users to connect their account to all of these other platforms, including Facebook. It allowed publishers of websites to tweet out links that would link back to their pages for quick and easy sharing. Twitter did have a couple of innovations that set it apart from the others. First, it integrated with text messaging, and that's where the 140 character limit comes from. Second, it did not require reciprocal relationships of friendship. Following was a one-way relationship. You didn't have to follow your followers. It introduced a concept of retweeting, which was reposting someone else's statement for your readers to see. And Twitter started out with a favorite button in 2006. Tumblr, another social networking site which is popular with younger students, added hearts in 2008, and Facebook added the like button in 2009. But Twitter really came of age in 2009 when this started in Iran. The uprising was organized almost entirely by tweets and blogs. It was galvanized to a global movement after the death of a young philosophy student named Neda Sultan at the hands of an Iranian sniper. If you're interested in the cultural shift that followed the move from blogging to social networking, I would recommend this article on Medium highly. The innovation that made social networking a part of our culture, however, was mobility. Both the iPhone and Google's Android OS were introduced in 2007 and the iPad in 2010. In these early days, Twitter was limited. It could not embed images, only links, and hence there was room for a photo sharing system, which became Instagram. Twitter didn't have a good way to hold conversations in a group, and Twitter profiles were pretty superficial. Facebook offered groups and pages for rich profiles. Twitter's favorite button was ambiguous between bookmarking, its original intent, and endorsing someone else's view. Plus, it was hard to save and browse old tweets or old favorites, and as a result, Pinterest appeared. Around 2009, after Twitter refused a takeover bid from Facebook, Facebook took its status update and changed it to mimic Twitter's microblogging model, opening their API to others and becoming a live stream in itself. Today, all these platforms handle links, images, and videos just as well as any of the others. The differences that exist between them is largely a matter of the cultures that have sprung up around them, and those cultures tend to reflect the site's origins as a microblogging platform, an image sharing system, or a social bookmarking tool like Pinterest. What this means is that, like biological evolution, each of the surviving social media networks fills some niche. We have microblogging platforms like Twitter, we have photo sharing systems like Instagram, and we have saving systems like Pinterest. The first variation among social media networks that's important to address is how they relate to reality. Facebook, as a policy, requires each account to be a real person. They even have a policy for it, and there's an enforcement tool where they encourage their users to report people who are using fake names. This is really important when you're setting up your page or your group because it does have to be linked to an actual individual. If you're not comfortable interacting with your students as a person on Facebook, you have to create an account where you can do that without engaging in conflicts or misinformation. The other thing that's Facebook unique is the difference between a page and a group. A page is an official communications of an entity, or in your case, an office or an honors program. It's a one-way communication device where you can post announcements and people can see them. A group is a two-way communication device. It's where dialogue can happen, where students can post information without you having to approve it. The two, at least of summer 2017, can now be linked. Prior to that, we couldn't link group and pages. Now we can. So most people, and I suggest this structure, should have a page where you communicate out to students and then a group where those discussions can happen. Groups can also be closed. Pages are open. So anyone in the world can like your page. Groups you can set up so that they have to be approved. We'll talk about more of this in the how to set up your Facebook account video later on. For Twitter, and most of the others, really don't care about whether you're a real person or not. Twitter lets you put any handle that you want as long as there's a valid email address behind it. That's how we have all these spoof accounts and satire accounts, because Twitter just doesn't care whether you are a real person or not. This is also still true for Instagram, as far as I know right now. That's summer 2017. But ever since it was required by Facebook, Instagram has been pushing people to connect to their real account on Facebook. And of course, you can imagine there are monetary reasons why. If Instagram knows who you really are and knows your real age and your real gender, they can market to you better, just like Facebook can. Snapchat accepts anything, any username that you want, but you can only run one account per device. So if you have a cell phone or you have an iPad, you can run different Snapchats on that, but if you have one device, you can only have one Snapchat. I will say there are some hacks and workarounds out there on the internet, but be careful. There are rumors that doing that will brick your phone. Google is pretty wide open. All of its services allow for multiple accounts. I have 4 or 5 that I use regularly, all using the same browser. Things do get a little tricky with Google when you're trying to set up an organization or a brand, however. And we're going to talk about that in the later video on how to set up Google. There used to be a couple of ways in Google Plus versus Google itself to do this. And there's something called Google My Business that gets you on the map. But all of these are now combined into a brand account. So the easiest way to do this, and I'll show you in the setup, is to create a fake Google account. I use ferrishonors@gmail.com, and then use that as if it's a real person and connect all of the things through there. The second major difference between these networks is how they store information, how long they store it, and how they make it accessible to the public. Twitter keeps all of its information for all of the time, and all of it is public. One of the reasons that I like Twitter is it has no pretensions of privacy. People on Facebook get in trouble because they think what they're posting is private when it's not. On Twitter, no one thinks that what they're posting is private, and so people self-censor themselves in a better way. Twitter does have a plan to archive all of its tweets in the Library of Congress, so they'll be all archived for posterity, even the deleted ones. It hasn't been implemented yet, though, as far as I know. So assume that if you publish it, it'll be kept for all time for everyone to see. Facebook similarly keeps everything for all time. People get in trouble on these sites because they forget this. As long as you remember that everything you post out there is going to be there for as long as you exist and longer, you should be okay. WhatsApp and Snapchat are the new versions, the new kids on the block that are designed to get around this problem. Both of them are intended to delete their material after you read it. WhatsApp does not store messages it sends to another user on a central server. So it's direct between the two, and it claims, at least, that it does not store those messages. Snapchat does store those messages. So when you send a message on Snapchat, it lives up in the cloud, and then it's read by another user and then deleted. So there is some possibility for Snapchat messages to be intercepted or to be stored without your knowledge. But even with these private messaging programs, be careful. Anything can be taken with a screenshot, no matter what you send. Someone can screenshot what it is and store it for all time. As a general rule, don't say something on social media that you wouldn't publish. We're all academics. We know what it means to say something in public and have to defend it. Bring that same sense of rigor to the social media world and you'll be fine. The third area where these things differ is about the immediacy, the quickness in which this information flows. The great challenge of this age is finding just the right information at just the right time. Back in 2011, there was a minor earthquake in DC. I was actually in a faculty meeting about an hour north at the moment it struck. These are my actual tweets from the day. As you can see, we were chatting about the normal stuff you do in a faculty meeting, and then the earthquake hit. Right here, Alan Stairs, who was at the University of Maryland, noticed the earthquake. And then just a few minutes later, we have people, Justin Beaver here, in Toronto feeling the quake. This is important because this is a map of the information on how the information about the earthquake spread. People in New York who worked for BuzzFeed got the information about the earthquake in DC before they felt the seismic vibrations. And the same thing happened here with some of my colleagues in Toronto. Our students who grow up in the world of on-demand information expect information relevant to their experience to be available when they want it. There's no need to devote energy to retaining information if you can retain the location of where that information lives. So students aren't primed to memorize information and dates. They're primed to put those dates and information into their phone so that they can find it later. And that's the world we're interacting with in social media. So it's part of our job to provide those opportunities to honor students. We need to make that information about those opportunities available to students when they need it, i.e. 24/7, as each of them needs it at a different time. In communicating with this generation, we need to do two things. First, we need to get their attention, and second, we need to provide resources that can be easily found again when they are ready to find it. Social media allows for both of these. By posting to Facebook and Twitter, we can inject our message into their normal information stream, and by building the system out in the way that I do, first as a blog and then sending out the links, it leaves the trace, breadcrumbs as it were, that they can follow back to find the full information when and where they need it. In my program, we split up information like this. All information that we would update annually or less frequently is hosted on our formal EDU site, ferris.edu/honors. All of that information has an expiration date. It's about a year or more. We change it only during the summers. Anything else, anything that has a timely information, a month out, 2 months out, 6 months out, we put on the social media networks through our blog. This includes opportunities for service. This includes classes, class schedules, registration information, and profiles of recent alumni. We even have places on our ferris.edu page where these stories scroll in real time so that you can see most recent posts. But that's an advanced topic. First, we have to set up the system. In the next video, or series of videos, I will show you how to set these up. It's a little strange, or it feels a little strange at first because we start sort of at the end. We start by setting up Google, and then we set up all the other social media accounts that link back to Google. So where we put information first is the blog, we actually set that up last. So there's a series of videos that show how to set up each of these, and then at the end, all of them will be linked back together. Thank you, and I hope to see you in those videos shortly.